Whether you like your coffee hot, cold, dark, or not at all, this is going to be the show for you. Conversations over coffee. In today's episode, we have my full 1-hour conversation with the owner of Pour Cleveland, Charlie Eisenstat. We talk about his background and how he went from being a lawyer to opening up one of the coolest shops in Cleveland and changing coffee culture. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Charlie Eisenstat. I'm the owner of Pour Cleveland, a coffee shop right in downtown Cleveland, Ohio.
And how long have you been doing this? Is it 2013?
Yeah, we've been open for over 5 years now, and I've been at this for probably close to 7 years now.
Gotcha. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I am 34 years old. Going to be 35 in May.
So under 40 and already just taking over the Cleveland scene. It's quite impressive.
Trying, yeah.
But let's go all the way back. You're from Cleveland area originally?
Yeah, I grew up on the east side in Orange, and moved around for a little bit. Went to high school down in Florida, came back up to Ohio for college. I went to Miami of Ohio, and then I moved back here to go to law school at Cleveland Marshall. Lived downtown. That's why part of the reason why I wanted to open up the coffee shop down here. Mm-hmm. And then went to Chicago for a brief period of time, thinking that my wife and I would settle down there. For a number of reasons, we didn't end up staying there longer than like 6 months, and came back here, and now we're residents of Lakewood.
Gotcha. Making the east to west divide, like we talked about. You're a brave man.
Yeah, not many people are willing to do it, but someone had to.
Yeah, my mom went to Miami, Ohio. Some of those I've been seeing, I'm like, oh, look at the little connection. One of those.
Yeah.
So, what took you to Chicago? You guys just thought that in your head, was that just always like your dream city?
Yeah, I guess sort of. My wife and I had visited a few times while she's from both New York and Florida, moved here to be with me, and she loves Cleveland and did even back when we were dating, but we both kind of we traveled to Chicago a few times together, really liked the city, and thought we would want to settle down there, but for a number of reasons, the job market I graduated into in 2009, and it was just it was hard to get full-time steady work. It's an expensive city to live in when you're not really working full-time, so I had family here and decided to move back to Cleveland and start our lives together here.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you guys have one kid, two kids, couple kids, right?
We have 2 kids. Yep. I've got a almost 6-year-old and a 2.5-year-old.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, as working in another business owner, do you have any things that, like, how do you get through your day and get it all done? Do you have any tips for anybody else of business management for that crazy entrepreneur?
You just got to kind of plan out stuff ahead, make lists, make checklists, schedules. Kind of always have to be flexible if you can be. That always helps. And have a good team around you. Everybody I have here is extremely trustworthy and also very dedicated to making really good coffee, which is our number one mission. And so I don't have to worry if I'm not here that stuff's going to change.
Yeah, and as a small business owner, that's your biggest worry is when you go home, you're like, you're still here in your head. You're like, can I worry about it?
It's 24 hours. Like,
Absolutely.
You go to bed, it's on your mind. You wake up, it's on your mind. If you wake up in the middle of the night, it's probably why you woke up. So.
Are we talking about coffee or are we talking about business?
Oh, both. Well, it is both for me, but yeah, you always are thinking of stuff, and but that's part of business.
Right, and your background, you said it was hard to get jobs. You were in finance originally, or was it law originally? How did all that start?
I started out in school as pre-med. My dad was a surgeon over at Hillcrest Hospital. Thought I would want to follow in his footsteps, so I started pre-med. Hated it, did horribly in my classes, so I dropped that. Changed to business because I took a business class my first year at Miami. Really liked it. And I think deep down, I was always like attracted to entrepreneurship, wanting to do, kind of create something and and have people get into it. So I changed majors to business, and I focused on finance. Not really sure why I chose finance over anything else, but I've always been into like numbers and stuff too. So I pursued that at Miami. Didn't ultimately know what kind of business I wanted to get into, or if I even wanted to really open my own business. So I decided to prolong my education a little bit. Went to law school. Figured my dad had always encouraged me to get as much education as possible, just from his own background. He just always wanted me to be like a professional at whatever I did. So kind of medical school, law school, so law school fit into that. Focused most of my law education on business and tax law. Thought maybe that I would get into that. I think I know deep down that I didn't really enjoy it. I worked in it a little bit here and there in town, but never thought about it seriously enough, I guess. I feel like the way our society is set up with education, you're sort of like forced to decide that like right when you graduate high school, like what you're gonna do for the rest of your life, which is definitely not realistic, I think, for most people, but that's kind of the route most people take, unfortunately. And so I did the law school thing. I did actually an extra year at Georgetown Law in Washington, D.C. Got a master's of tax law, thinking I would really specialize in that and that would be my expertise. Didn't really think I could, again, deep down know that I wanted to do that for the next 30 years of my life or whatever.
Right.
But I have that degree, I guess, to fall back on. So I did, I worked, I took the Illinois bar thinking we would settle down in Chicago. So I'm licensed there, and then moved out there thinking I would get like an associate position at a larger firm. Just timing wise, it didn't work out, just because of the way the economy was in 2009, 2010. Was kind of freelancing at law firms. I worked at Chicago Board of Trade for a couple traders there, which was a good experience, but I was doing a lot of like kind of running and grunt work. Nothing I could do.
A lot of getting coffee?
For myself, I would sneak out, and there's a lot of great shops in Chicago, which definitely influenced a lot of what we do at POR. Yeah, so it just wasn't sustainable in Chicago for us, so we ended up leaving. Eventually came back to Cleveland, since we have like family and friends here to kind of fall back on, and eventually, after jumping around to a few firms part-time, got a job at PNC in their trust and charitable and endowment group. Worked there for about a year and a half, but at the same time was kind of formulating a business plan for this, and just timing wise, and with not much to our names, we just decided to go for starting the business.
Just go all in.
Just kind of went all in, yeah.
Right on.
And here we are 5 years later.
Excellent. So let's talk about that business. The business is POR.
Yep.
Let's talk about the name. How did you come up with the name? I mean, it's obvious it's related to coffee, but I mean, it's really catchy.
So yeah, the name, and we like when we were coming up with the business and concepting like what we wanted the feel of the shop to be, we came up with a few like very different names and concepts, but in the end we wanted it to be like focused on our specialty, which was pour over coffee. So that's kind of what the inspiration for POR was, but then, you know, we are very much, like a lot of the small businesses in town are very like local centric and Cleveland centric, so we just thought of like, people are always like down on Cleveland, especially from the outside, like, oh, poor Cleveland, like,
Gotcha.
you know,
Little play on
something
words.
else, yeah. So that's where that came from.
Nice.
Yeah.
The little behind the scenes. If it wasn't going to be POR, was there one that was close to another one?
God, there was some weird stuff There was some stuff to do with like zombies and stuff. Like totally different concepts.
Totally different concept.
Yeah, but we just kind of went with like more, just like streamlined, quality focus, minimal. Like this is what we do. This is what we're good at. If you come in here, this is what you're gonna get.
Right.
So yeah, not too like gimmicky.
Gotcha.
In that aspect, yeah.
So you said that a lot of Chicago influences are in here. Are there any other regional influences that you incorporate? I know that you're a global coffee connoisseur, but are there any culture other than Cleveland that you like or want to incorporate here?
No, I mean I like the kind of the Midwest, but Chicago is also Midwest, but kind of like the hometown small market that Cleveland is. I like that aspect of hospitality. I'm a big believer in kind of going above and beyond for service. So like everyone I want, or everyone that comes in here, I want them to have a great experience. I don't want, because what we do is a little bit different than most coffee that's out there. We're really conscious of kind of the intimidation factor that this style of coffee can have, and especially like the different places that we're getting coffee from, like roasters from all over the world, and the potential for confusion. So we make sure that everyone that works here is very like knowledgeable and able to communicate that without being like off-putting, so to speak.
In our experiences, everybody that we've dealt with has been not only the worry that you get with like that specialty shop is that everybody's gonna be the snobby. Like you walk in, you're like, you're looking at it, you're like, I have no idea what I want. And everybody that we talked to has been very not only encouraging but knowledgeable. So
that's our goal. Like that was really like we were conscious of that in our business plan. And that's unfortunately the experience that most people get in specialty coffee, and got that. I've had that in town here. I've had that in Chicago, Washington D.C., where I studied for a year. There's good coffee there too, but there's definitely like a divide in terms of how much the customer knows versus how much you know.
Right.
And it's about like bridging that without kind of being condescending. And
you don't want to be come off as I know everything. This
no,
is why.
and you don't like. That's why I love coffee too, is because you. I mean, what this store is today is nothing like. I mean, it's a little bit, but it's very different than when we opened, and it allows you to constantly evolve and get better.
Right, you kind of use your own creativity and your own personality in your offerings too, don't you? Kind of sample through and use the style that you like. So yeah,
basically what this has turned into is kind of just like a business version of like a hobby, really, which you read a lot about people saying don't do that, which maybe they're right, but it's this is kind of what I got into coffee seriously in Washington D.C. I used to like just going to coffee shops like Starbucks up the street. When I was at Marshall, I would study there. Just found the law library to be like the most depressing place on earth.
I could understand.
Mostly because I didn't like the subject matter, but I liked kind of the atmosphere of a coffee shop before anything else. And in Washington D.C., I had a neighborhood shop that was right by my apartment that I was living in at the time. Got to know the baristas fairly well there. They eventually, on a weekend, I had more time. They made me a pour over, which I didn't know what that was, and it blew my mind. They wouldn't let me add my normal like cream and Splenda or whatever I was adding to it. I told them I know I'm not going to like it, and they're like, oh, you have to try it without. And I was convinced I wouldn't like it, and we do that here. Like, people don't know what to order. Like, just try this coffee as is. This is what it tastes like. And most times they're like a little hesitant. But you try a really good black coffee, and it's well prepared. It doesn't really need any sweetener or cream. So that's really the goal with like all the coffees here. But I got into coffee that way from that one cup. And just started ordering coffee from different roasters all over the country, and learned a lot of coffee from Twitter. I started following every coffee person I could. Got into like a special like preview subscription for this cool roaster out in Los Angeles. So I felt like kind of an insider, even though I didn't know anybody.
Right.
Learned a lot that way, just brewing coffee at home, the same style we make it in the store, pour over with a V60, and just kind of experimented a lot, and that's kind of what we do here. We get samples sent to us from all over the country / world, and brew it up and taste it, and if we like it, we put it on the menu. And
Nice.
Yeah.
A lot of in my travels, I've gone back and forth across the country a few times. Luckily, my dad moved out to Seattle, which is one of those go-to places where you hear coffee culture, and you hear about Seattle because of Starbucks, which I think is the exact opposite of what you should hear about Seattle. Have you been out there?
Yeah, it's definitely very like not Starbucks centric, but it's definitely like a different style than we like to do here.
Right.
Which was at least a little surprising to me, but a lot of the coffee there's definitely, and it's kind of American culture versus a lot of the coffees that we get in to our shop, but definitely like more, I won't say dark roast, but more developed roast, and that's just kind of the flavor profile that they like. So you're going to get more like caramelization on beans and less, you're going to taste less of like where the coffee comes from, so to speak, on lighter roasted stuff.
Gotcha. The thing that I love about their culture, though, is not the Starbucks or any of those, is the shacks.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go shopping, you could go right in the same parking lot and there's a shack.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's rickety. Sometimes it might just be a Home Depot shed, but everywhere is their own personality, their own availability out there. It's completely different to here.
It's very coffee centric.
Right.
Where like Cleveland, I would say, is on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to American coffee culture, and then like you go past that to like a lot of like Scandinavian cities, and they have like basically like ritual coffee breaks in their day. Like that's part of their culture.
Like the Mexican siesta, they just stop and you gotta have coffee.
Yeah, it's like fika. It's like a coffee break.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you give that to your employees? Do they have a fika time?
Yeah. Well, almost their whole shift is coffee break.
And part of coffee that I really like to my own side, I want to say that you were spot on with this. I taste oranges and all sorts, and I'm just like you were. If she's going out for coffee, I'll get like a macchiato or something, which like I think I've seen you be quoted as this a glorified milkshake. 100% agree. But this one, like you said, you taste the notes of the orange, and on the back end, it's the sweet. It's not the bitter that was always associated with coffees, the burnt or bitter.
So coffee, if it's done right, should be in our mind kind of the benchmarks are sweetness, acidity, which acidity has like kind of a negative connotation. People are like, oh, I don't like acidy coffee. Really, it's just perceived acidity. So a coffee that you taste a lot of like citrus and stuff that you might say is acidic, it's really just a flavor perception. It's not actually acidic. Like if you took like a pH reading of this coffee and Starbucks, they're going to be almost the same. Like 98 to 99% of that cup is really just H2O.
Right.
So it's like a very small amount as a dissolved coffee bean. So it's not actually acidic, but kind of that perceived brightness that kind of like, makes your like, your taste buds tingle a little bit. That's like what we are looking for. Like that's what I think makes coffee exciting. I think most coffee is going to have some sort of like caramely, chocolatey kind of taste to it. If it's not under roasted. A lot of people hear light roast too, and they think under roasted, like kind of grassy tasting. We are looking for top tier coffee. So most of what we get in on a scale of 1 to 100, I would say is around 90, probably high 80s to low 90s. But it's super high grade. So if and really like a lot of bitterness comes from preparation. more than anything.
That's my next question.
Yeah, and if you taste, it's hard to explain a lot of this stuff, but like the more coffee you taste and try and brew, the more you learn. Which we do like an extensive training program with our employees to like learn how to taste defects in coffee and what you're tasting. Is it like something that you did brewing it, or is it something that is just inherent in the coffee that's just not good? So we're looking for kind of a balance of sweetness, exciting flavors like acidity, brightness, and just kind of something interesting, like whether it's the mouthfeel, is this kind of like effervescent, is it like kind of milky, smooth? But yeah, just something that is kind of a balance between like exciting and approachable is really what we're going for.
Gotcha.
Kind of not your ordinary coffee, for sure.
Right, yeah. And for the home user, the one that can't come out to pour every morning like they really want to, if drip method, is that the right, is that what we're doing here?
So we do both. We do pour over, which is just like a hand drip coffee. It's just basically like what Mr. Coffee machine does, but you're doing it by hand with a kettle. We have kettles here that are designed for pour over, so you're kind of having like a more delicate stream of water into the coffee, so you're not agitating the coffee grounds too much, which can cause like bitterness that you're not looking for. But really, the dark secret of coffee that I feel like a lot of coffee professionals just won't come out and tell you is if you start with good coffee, you'll be more likely to get good coffee. If you start with bad coffee, no matter how you brew it, it's not going to make it better.
Are you talking about by good coffee? You mean the beans themselves?
Yeah,
or?
The beans themselves. So every point of the process from the time the coffee's planted in the ground to when you're drinking it in your cup, there's not really potential for it to get better. It's just kind of diminishing returns at every point. So if hopefully the farmer is using good growing practices, and then once it's picked and harvested, hopefully they have good processing as far as like how they're cleaning the coffee fruit off the bean, storing it, if they use fermentation or not in the process of, because the coffee bean itself is just kind of a seed inside of a cherry, so they kind of have to get rid of the fruit off of it. So there's a lot of potential for the coffee to get messed up along the way. So if you're taking careful steps all through the process, and then when it's roasted, if you're roasting it to the right point to kind of optimize all those things we're looking for, sweetness, balance, acidity, then you're hopefully getting a good cup in the end. But if you start with a coffee that hasn't been treated well, it's not roasted well, it's a low quality bean to start with, if you even do like a perfect pour over, it's not going to make it better. Or you pull a perfect shot of espresso to exactly the specs that you want it, it's not going to make it better. You're only going to get out whatever that you put in. So, and I feel like coffee, specialty coffee especially, is afraid to just tell you like, just buy good coffee and you're more likely to get good coffee. I would say the most important stuff when you're brewing at home, start with good coffee, good water. Water quality is super important. Like I said, 99% of your cup is going to be composed of the water that you use to brew it. So if you have water that tastes too chemically from whatever city you live in, whatever they add to the water, or definitely use filtered water. Here at Pour, we obviously are putting an emphasis on quality, and we want the coffees to be their absolute best. So we have invested in a reverse osmosis system that basically strips the water down to nothing, almost like distilled water, and then we blend back in filtered water, so it's free of like chlorine and fluoride taste, and just has some mineral content because you need that to brew good coffee. But definitely, at the very minimum, use a Brita filter or bottled water at home. Ice Mountain is great for making coffee. If you're
Shout
using
out to Ice Mountain. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. But use good water and a good grinder.
I wanted to ask about the filter.
Yeah.
Like, is there a specific
That's really all like a personal experience type thing.
Is there one material that's better than another, or
it's kind of whatever you like personally. So we at Pour use a V60, which is. Hey, Nick or Patrick, can you hand me a V60? I can show it better that way. So that's right. I'll use the other side. So we use these to brew our single cups. The design is unique in that, unlike a Melita or a lot of coffee brewers use kind of like a flat bottom at some point, either totally flat like a circle or it comes to a V with a flat bottom. This comes to a point, and then it also has a large opening here where like a cone filter fits through. So with that large hole at the bottom, the water just kind of wants to run through quicker. If you have like most other brewers will have like a flat bottom that's metal, and it'll have like a little puncture in the bottom where the water can slowly kind of drip through, or even like on a Mr. Coffee or something like that, it might have like 2 holes at the bottom. But this is kind of like wants to have water flow through it quicker.
Gotcha. So
what we do is it allows us to grind a lot finer, and the finer you grind, the more you're going to pull out of the coffee, good and bad. But if we're using, again, good coffee, you're pulling out hopefully good stuff. So you're getting a much more complex cup, and then the filters for these will absorb a lot of the oils and stuff that you get from a more steeped process of brewing. Like opposite of this would be like French press, where you kind of are filling a container full of ground coffee with hot water. You're letting it steep together, so the water is constantly in contact with the coffee beans. And then you're kind of draining, or not draining it, but you're kind of plunging out the grounds and pouring out kind of the water through a metal filter. The paper filter will absorb a lot more of the oils, so you're getting a much more clean, delicate cup. So you don't get a lot of like oils and stuff in this, as opposed to like a French press,
right,
which will have like kind of like a thicker, kind of oilier mouthfeel to it. We used to use, which we still from time to time will use Chemex, which is very similar in terms of brew method, like pouring style, but it's kind of a beautiful glass container. We kind of have some with plants in them over there, but we used to use it for like brewing 2 cups at a time. You can brew larger volumes in it. If you have one at home, you can also use it as a wine decanter. But it's kind of got this hourglass shape, so the cone is very similar to this, fits in the top. It's got a special bonded paper. It's much thicker, so you'll get like the cleanest cup of coffee I think you can get really on a Chemex. Almost the same thing, but I just prefer the V60. It can fit right on your mug, or you can brew into a canister. I've brewed larger quantities in this and had great results too, but it kind of lets you just kind of dig into a coffee very quickly, very easily. I personally brew on a coffee brewer at home. I don't do a lot of pour overs anymore at home. I don't know if it's just a laziness thing or just being tired from having kids.
Office that you could have somebody else do it, right?
Yeah, I don't want to think about it at home, I guess, which I get. We used to only do pour overs at Pour. Now we also have drip, which
is that something that the customers were asking for?
It was more of a speed of service concern for us. If we had like a rush of customers, we would kind of get backed up just because we can only do so many pour overs at a time.
Right.
Whereas we have like a reservoir of coffee that we kind of constantly keep fresh and brewed, and we can serve people quicker if they're just looking for a quick coffee. But and that's kind of how we set up our menu. We have usually one domestic roaster that we're working with, just because of cost-wise, it's far cheaper to get coffee in from the U.S. than some of our other roasters that we work with from outside the states. And then we usually throw something a little bit more approachable. Not always. All the coffees that we get in are really good, but usually it's more of a kind of chocolatey, more of those like true like coffee note type things you're looking for. Chocolate, caramel, nutty. So usually like a Brazil, a Colombia, something like that. Guatemalan right now is what we have, which is like very milk chocolatey. It's got a little like orange tangerine kind of finish to it that makes it kind of exciting and different, but very approachable coffee. We throw on Fetco, which is just a manufacturer of a brewer that we use, and so you can get a quick cup here, or you can get coffee from some of the best roasters around the world that we've made some really good partnerships with since we started serving international coffees. I think we started doing that in 2015, so we've been doing it almost 4 years now. And we've worked with award-winning roasters from Norway, Germany, Japan. So really exciting stuff that you can't get almost anywhere else in the States, or sometimes nowhere else in the States.
And soon to be one of the best roasters in the world is you, right?
I hope so. I hope so.
As a coffee shop owner, what made you take the jump to that extra venture to start roasting yourself?
So,
or is it just because you didn't have enough room in your kitchen to kind of start that venture at home too?
No, roasting is something I never planned on doing when we opened, and my wife kind of gives me crap about it because she asked about it, and I was like, "Oh, we'll never roast. Don't worry about that." As far as like branding and stuff. So here we are 5+ years later, and we're going to be opening a roastery hopefully in the next month. We're just kind of going through the final processes of building out and getting permits and stuff like that. But we started out as kind of a single roaster shop, like a lot of places do. We were working with Counterculture Coffee, which is one of the big 4 or so roasters in the States. They're out of Raleigh, and they provide great education and stuff. So it was a great company to start with. Most of my personal coffee knowledge, and that's been incorporated into our own training, has come from them. We started with them, and then we started getting samples sent to us probably 6 months in, once we were open and people could find us on the internet, from roasters around the country. And after a while, it was just getting tough to stick with one roaster because there's so much good coffee out there, and that was a bigger mission for me than to have loyalty to one roaster, was to like share really good coffee with everybody in Cleveland. So we just eventually decided to make the switch to become a multi-roaster shop, and which has its advantages and disadvantages. From a business perspective, you don't get really same like bulk price breaks that you would by just using one roaster, but you have access to so much more coffee that way. So we started like kind of a monthly, every couple month rotation of roasters. We've worked with really some of the best and brightest in the U.S. Ceremony out of Annapolis. We've done Madcap. We've done George Howell. Some really like groundbreaking roasters in specialty in the U.S. And kind of just decided to keep a rotation of that. Eventually, we were contacted by Five Elephant, which is a roaster in Berlin, Germany that you're actually sipping right now. And they were like, "Yeah, we found you on Instagram. Would you like to try some samples from a roaster in Berlin, Germany?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know how this will work, but okay."
Right.
So they sent us probably 8 or so coffees that we have free coffee cuppings every Saturday that you can come in and try coffees and learn a little bit more about coffee and tasting coffee.
Is that at the same time every Saturday?
Yeah, every Saturday at noon.
Every Saturday at noon, Poor Cleveland coffee lessons.
Yeah. So yeah, just come in. It's like we put sometimes what's on our menu. Sometimes it's from a roaster that'll send us stuff. We have some coffee that we just got from a roaster in Japan. So I mean, really unique opportunities and it's free. So really cool way to learn more about coffee, meet people. But anyways, yeah, we did that. We did a public cupping and tried it, and myself and our store manager and trainer, who will also be our head roaster, Gabe, got in and tried them all, and they really like blew our minds. It was unlike anything that I had tried. It kind of like formulated like what our current barometer for good coffee, just bright, sweet, exciting, super clean tasting. You don't taste like roast at all.
I love every time that you're using these descriptive words. As you usually find a way to do that after I sip the cup somehow. I'm like, yeah. So all the way through.
It's
and
yeah.
this particular, the 5 Elephant one, I'm finding like as the temperature goes down on it, it's tasting more and more like a tea.
Yeah,
where
that's
like as a lot of like home coffees, like the colder it gets, you're like, oh, I don't want this anymore. With
that's a good test
like,
for your coffee is letting it cool, because you'll more of the good and more of the bad will come through. You can taste more. Your taste buds work better like when the coffee's more in the 170s. We brew it close to 200, so usually after 5-10 minutes, it's usually like in its like prime spot for like evaluation. Getting back to the 5 Elephant, we just had to figure out a way to get it on our menu. And being in Cleveland and this market, it was a bit of a challenge and kind of an evaluation point. Like, are we ready for this? Is the market ready for this? And in a lot of ways, it wasn't. But we just have a commitment to kind of quality, and I'd rather serve coffee that I'm excited about than kind of the mundane. And we brought in coffee from Germany, and that led to us ordering in samples from other respected international roasters, like Tim Wendelbo out of Oslo, Norway. He wins like Nordic Roaster of the Year, which is like a style of roasting.
That's your preferred style, isn't it, the Nordic?
Yeah, it's kind of lighter, it puts more emphasis on acidity, which again in American coffee culture I feel like has a negative connotation. But really, like, coffee should be acidic, but it should also be balanced and sweet. It shouldn't be like just acidic and with nothing else going on. That would taste kind of gross.
Right.
So we want our stuff to be exciting but approachable.
And as far as the roastery, that's going across from Barrio, is that right?
Yeah, in Tremont. So it's 807 Literary Road.
And I think I saw it's only going to be a wholesale.
Yeah, so the plan with that right now is it'll be unique. It'll be a wholesale training center. So if you're another cafe or a bakery that wants to serve really good coffee, you can come in and try out what we have. You can bring your staff and we'll train them to brew coffee the right way, in our minds at least, and kind of optimize flavor and just kind of get better at the craft of brewing coffee and serving coffee, and hopefully that'll lead to better wholesale relationships and more business that way.
And you seem to do a lot with the local people. I think I saw you in the Cleveland Independence, and we're trying to get the other cafes in to kind of learn how to do it. What do you think about building a coffee culture? Where do you see yourself in Cleveland coffee culture?
I would say most of my focus has been honestly on I'm a huge believer in Cleveland and wanting this city to look good. So most of my focus has been on my own business, to be honest. I'm definitely into the coffee culture here growing, and I think by being the best we can be ourselves, it pushes other people to kind of do better and do things differently. And I think we've all pushed each other to be better over the last 5 years. Rising Star, Phoenix, Duck Rabbit, and then like so many independent shops have opened since we started in 2013. So coffee culture here is I think better than most people will even give it credit.
Right.
I would rather get a cup of coffee in Cleveland than in almost any other city in the States.
Nice.
Which I couldn't say 5 years ago.
And what about the Cleveland bakeries? Are there any Cleveland bakeries? Being a guy that kind of
Yeah.
is all about the morning routine, what Cleveland bakeries should not only I check out for something like this, but everybody else? Where should people know about to get a good thing to go with a cup of coffee?
Well, I'll start with our partners. Cleveland Bagel Company, we were one of the
Delicious.
first to partner with them when they were just kind of starting out and didn't have a storefront. Now they're bagel royalty, really. They have a second store. Yeah, they're over on I think 77 in Carnegie. Yeah, Dan and Jeff are great. They have a great product. We serve them for pretty much like our first 4 years, and then took a break once they opened their store. We couldn't sell anymore for a while, so we had to just stop because we were throwing out too many bagels, and it was just sad. But we had too many people asking for them again, so we started serving them again for the last like few months, and they're great. So we serve those with our coffee, and then Philomena Bake Shop. I can't really say enough good things about. Caitlin, the owner of Philomena, she reached out to us and came in here not long after we opened, maybe 6 months, and gave us a taste of the kind of the stuff she was making back then. It was amazing, so we threw her on our menu. And over time, she found out kind of amazing. She either realized or developed a severe gluten intolerance, where she couldn't even be near it without getting sick, and she had to take a break from baking for like, I want to say maybe 6 months or so. But kind of, this is her passion, so she kind of reformulated herself as totally gluten-free and vegan, and we serve couple different muffins, scones, cookies. They're all gluten-free and vegan, and I would put them against almost every bakery in town that is full gluten. And her stuff blows almost everything out of the water.
Excellent.
Yeah.
The one morning thing I haven't heard, where do you personally go, being somebody from the east side and the west side, where do you go for your donuts?
Donuts. God, there's a lot
I like
of
how
places.
your eyes just lit up for donuts. Maybe there's a donut shop in the future?
Oh, definitely not. I know nothing about donuts other than eating them. Brew nuts for sure. We used to serve brew nuts here as well. We've kind of been like an incubator for a lot of food businesses to get off the ground. At least I like to think that. But brew nuts, Shelly and John, the owners, are extremely passionate, creative, and it shows in their donuts. They have an amazing store over in Detroit Shoreway in Gordon Square. They're like 56 in Detroit, or 65th, sorry. Really cool space. They have like a donut bar, but it's an actual bar, so they have full liquor license, beer, and that was kind of their concept. All their donuts are kind of beer-centric. Their stuff's really good. Jack Frost, I love Jack Frost.
I don't even think you could call Jack Frost donuts. They're so like decadent and huge. It's
Yeah.
almost like a wedding cake.
They are.
They're delicious though.
Yeah. Fluffy Duck also is not for donuts, but for baked goods. They're amazing. They're really talented. Nothing quite like them in town. There's also On the Rise. Does more like authentic pastry, and Blackbird also on the west side. But Fluffy Duck for like actual like pastry is unbeatable in town.
Good to know. So you said you're an incubator to the small business, and I think that kind of is.
That's being too generous to myself, by the way.
But I mean, I think part of it is just how accessible you are with your Instagram and things. You guys, it's one of those. My strategy with everybody that I work with is make sure that it doesn't matter how many followers you have; it's how engaged you are with the followers. And I think just about every single comment, everything that I've seen on every platform you're on, either you or somebody's responding to all of those. Is that just kind of a natural thing, or is that part of your marketing strategy?
It's kind of been on the fly as far as marketing goes. We didn't budget a lot for marketing because we're small and most of our costs are in labor and our coffees themselves. So, I mean, we're fortunate to be kind of coming up in this time with like free marketing opportunities and social media, and we wanted to build a brand that was very accessible and very open and willing to share. Like we try to, I personally like Twitter a lot because I think it's a very approachable platform for coffee, especially. So people ask us questions on there about how we're brewing. I don't. There's no secrets.
Right.
We don't have a secret recipe. If you come in here and we're brewing you a pour over and you ask what our recipe is, I'll tell you. There's no reason to hide it. Where some places may be more secretive of that. If you're gonna buy coffee here, I want you to have the opportunity to do the same thing at home. So I'm very willing to share. So if someone tweets us a question on brewing or comments on an Instagram post like, how are you brewing that? I'm very happy to share how we're brewing it, why we're brewing it the way we are, or if we're doing something a little different than we normally would, why we're doing that. An educated customer to me is a better customer.
Absolutely.
So we always wanted to be very open with that kind of stuff, and I think that makes for a better, if you're more interactive, I think you kind of have like an online persona a bit, and people are just more willing to, people just find you more relatable that way than to be too corporate-y. We like to poke fun at ourselves, we're kind of known as even though we try our best to not be that snooty coffee place, people view us that way because of how serious we take our coffee here. So we poke fun at ourselves for that. Just any opportunity to just kind of be more approachable. That's
right.
That's
to be a
important.
person. You're a brand, but you guys are also people.
Yeah, exactly. It's we want people to know we're a small business. We're a family business. It's my wife has a full-time job, but she definitely directs most of our marketing and strategy that way.
Is her full-time job related to marketing, or does she just kind of have that second nature for it?
No, she is in marketing, so that helps for sure. Yeah, it's definitely it's difficult, but it's also fun to create a brand and maintain it. It's really important to us that voice kind of remains constant and consistent through the last 6 years.
Is there anything that you could recommend to people that are trying to work with a spouse? I mean, you always hear the horror stories of people working together. What keeps that working and also keeps the whole household balance working?
My wife is amazing as far as being a true partner in this. Extremely supportive of this is my dream, and she's never been anything but supportive of that and my pursuit of being the best business person I can be, and definitely has an understanding of what I'm trying to do, and you're never fully at the point you want to be at in business, and you're always striving to change and improve, and Maggie, my wife, has always supported that and gone out of her way to make sure that happens for us, and she views herself as a partner in this, even though she does have a full-time job. She will spend an hour at night kind of crafting a post and stuff like that for Instagram, and comes up with ideas for the store. So it's not so much a chore to have a wife or a spouse work with you. It's more it makes it easier, if anything, if you have a supporting spouse that in business, because there's too many trials and difficult times in business that if you don't have a strong support system at home, it would almost be impossible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And kind of on the same business note with the marketing and everything, if as a business owner, knowing what you know now, everything that you've done, if you could go, fill it up again, sir, fill it up again.
Thanks, Nick.
If you could go all the way back to the start, all the way back to the original plan,
yeah.
knowing everything that you know now, is there anything, or is there a list of things as somebody that's looking to start a coffee shop or start their own small shop? What would you go back and change, if anything?
I think for this specific plan, I would have. I probably would have done like a pop-up almost while we were building out this space, just because whatever your construction timeline is, triple it, quadruple it.
Absolutely.
We were supposed to be open in April of 2013. We didn't end up opening until almost December. So that's a lot of capital that is just kind of going to waste. So I think a pop-up would have helped kind of introduce us to the market before we opened. It would have just helped us hit the ground running a little bit more. Just research your concept, but I would say what's kept us in business over the years is I absolutely love this and what I do. I think too many people get into business for the wrong reasons. I became a lawyer for the wrong reasons. I thought I'd make like 6 figures and just be happy doing that, even though I hated the actual job. If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. That saying is true to a degree. I mean, I work hard, but it's fun. I get to try amazing coffees from all over the world, which is what I love to do anyways, and share those with people. So yeah, just if you're gonna go into business, make sure you love it, because you're gonna be doing it for a long time. And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And on that, doing it a long time, you got the roasting coming up.
Yeah.
Are you thinking? To me, the only thing that in your whole business plan that I haven't really seen that. Maybe you're doing it in the classes, but unfortunately, we'll be there pretty soon now that we know about it. But are you thinking of doing any sort of educational type thing?
Yeah.
Kind of just like either whether it's an internet thing or kind of just keeping.
We have done some, not consistently enough. It was actually a very important part of the business plan was education, and a lot of it has been educating ourselves, really. Like my understanding of coffee today versus like when we first opened is completely different, and so thinking of ways to like communicate that better to people is really important. We've done some like homebrewing classes, but even that, to me, as my understanding of coffee has evolved, has just changed. Like, again, like I would rather you buy a really good coffee, have me grind it here in the store, whereas when we first opened, I would have told you to like buy a pour-over kit, and I can't really advocate that, if I'm being honest with my customer. I think most people, it's not really practical, and it's not always the best way to enjoy the coffee. It's definitely a way to like learn the most about coffee and really like dive into it cup by cup. But if you buy a good home brewer and good coffee and you grind it here on a good grinder, you're going to get almost better results than grinding it at home on a blade grinder or even a lower quality burr grinder. So you know, I can do like a home brewing class, but if I'm being honest, it might not be how I'd recommend you brew the coffee at home. I have a Bonavita brewer at home that I've fallen in love with. Again, not sponsored, but it's like about $100 on Amazon. It gets the water temperature to the right point where a lot of like Mr. Coffees and stuff will not get the water hot enough, which is important for extraction. And some of my favorite cups are on that at home. But yeah, we do want to have more classes and stuff out here, which we probably will in the spring, but I've just honestly been spread too thin to do
Absolutely.
more of that.
Yeah, when I first heard about the roaster being right across from Barrio, like instantly every time I hear Barrio, I think good tacos, or I think waiting my ass off. So like as soon as I heard like if there's a cool place, just kind of to go, like not even like a whole tour, but like if there's, I don't know how your building's all set up, but like if there was any way to kind of have like the public just kind of see, even if it's through a window of like the process, kind of like when you go to the microbreweries. Like I think that'd be a really cool thing.
That's something we want to do. We have a large storefront, or not a large storefront. We have large windows in our storefront. Our storefront itself is like 550 square feet upstairs, so it's very small. I would like a cafe in there, but it's honestly just not big enough. Right. We have all of our space is going to be used for roasting and QC and training our wholesale customers. But yeah, eventually I'd like a larger space to do that. If it works out, we might decide to get certified for through the health department for like Saturday. Like I know a lot of people go to Barrio for like brunch and stuff,
right.
but it's fairly quiet in that neighborhood during the week. That I don't know that it would be worth opening a cafe. There's other cafes that we like to work with and sell our coffee to as well. But really, like the thing with wholesaling is wanting other people to brew coffee better.
Right, kind of scaling everything we're doing and kind of making sure while it scales, it's doing it at a quality level.
Right, and that's the type of like customers that we want. So hopefully we can just get more people brewing coffee and brewing better coffee, and that'll be a win-win.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody's nicer with the coffee. If it's better coffee, it only makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, really, coffee. I think that's another thing that specialty coffee does is likes to overcomplicate coffee to the point where it's again like confusing and off-putting. But if you are again approachable and simplify it as much as possible, it's not hard to make a good cup of coffee really, as long as you have a basic understanding. So classes that like go over that kind of stuff would be cool to do, and we hope to do more of those.
Yeah, and even if it's not a class, because I know that takes a lot of resource and space, it's one of those like after the shop shuts down, kind of use the shop as a little video studio to kind of you know, you guys, your Instagram presence is phenomenal. I think you're like 13,000.
Yeah, just about.
And your branding is beautiful. Everything's congruent. To kind of have that same educational piece on the video front.
Yeah.
And same thing. Like I'd love before we get out of here, get a couple guys kind of showing us how they do the latte art type stuff.
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
I mean, that's such like. You guys find so many different ways to bring the art, like the beakers behind you, or the art, or the plants coming out of the different things. Like
I think that's part of the whole atmosphere that I fell in love with coffee. Is it is a beautiful kind of ritual.
Right. It's a communal thing. Like the first thing when she wakes up, it's like there's like a cup of coffee. You know, it's one of the first nice thing that you can do for somebody in the morning. You know. Yeah,
it's that was me. I would like wake up real early and like, oh man, I get to make coffee. I'm like happy now.
Nice.
So yeah, like that aspect, and it is beautiful. So we have like, you know, brewers that are beautiful. Our grinder is beautiful. The espresso machine we have is functionally it's awesome, but it's also like very unique and beautiful as well.
Right.
Cold brew towers over here. A unique process for sure, as opposed to how most people do cold brew in town. But also they look really cool. People like taking photos of those.
Right. The last thing about this shop that I really want to talk about is we talk about snooty things. Like everybody knows about wine being snooty. You know, a lot of. We're getting married. I just bought a ton of wine glasses for the thing. Does the cup matter for coffee? Like you're a different blend or a different thing. Like how does that play into the whole coffee experience?
I would say it does. You know, our service model, we don't emphasize it maybe as much as I would like to in an ideal world, just because cost-wise. But I think, you know, if you, and not just coffee, anything, I think if you drink it out of a different type of glass, like beers too, if you go get beer at like a craft brewery, they'll have different shaped glasses depending on the style beer that you're drinking. I think it matters like how you experience like the aromas versus like how it's flowing like into your mouth and stuff like that will kind of be affected by the glass, and that like can help. One of the roasters actually that we work with Tim Wendelboe, who I have immense respect for, has like developed a set of glasses depending on, or like cups, depending on which coffee you're drinking. So, they'll have like, for more fuller bodied stuff, you might have like a wider mouth cup that you kind of like are just like, that's like what's emphasized. Some stuff will be more like narrow, where like you're like just kind of hit with like the aromas and stuff like that. So definitely matters. For me, like drinking coffee, I like a comfortable mug, something that it's not too wide where it's like awkward to like sip out of, but just something comfortable, clean, sleek. That's kind of like our whole visual motif here.
Was that the first cup that you guys picked, or
No, we used to
as far as I think what I'm trying to get at, as far as a business standpoint, how did you source the right cup manufacturer?
We're like very conscious of like different players in the industry, like specialty coffee wise. So you can go with like a basic diner mug, which is at like Waffle House or whatever. But we wanted something a little bit more streamlined and sleek, so we are using mugs now that we get custom printed from. It's called Created Company, or Created Co.
Are they local?
They're not. They're I believe they're out of California, but I don't know for sure. And then there's also we have mugs out there from Not Neutral, which is another they're California-based company, but very like ergonomic, very beautiful mugs. But we just decided to do something a little bit bigger for this round of mugs than our last ones. Our last ones used to like fill like basically to the brim, which our pour overs currently fill fairly high, but there's a little bit of room, but just kind of ran out of space. And then our like espresso mugs and stuff are all from ANCAP, which is like an Italian designer, really like easy to pour into and stuff like that.
Nice. And how I like to end every interview is what I call the digital soapbox.
Okay.
It's kind of, you get a minute or whatever it is to kind of just whatever you want to leave in mind, whether it's what you guys are doing, upcoming things, just something about coffee, whatever you want to leave everybody that's watching the podcast form of this.
Sure.
Whenever you're ready, go shoot.
Okay. I would encourage everybody, if you're at all interested in what we're doing, come downtown to Cleveland and come into Pour and try a mind-blowing cup of coffee. That's the feedback we've been getting a lot lately. Is like, you just blew my mind with that coffee, and it happens a lot. If you aren't sure if you like coffee, come in here, try a cup of coffee. Ask our baristas if you're not sure what to order. We can pair you up with the drink that I think you'll like the best. But come in with an open mind, and I think you'll leave a coffee lover. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have you back for another segment.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah.